Absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
I look forward to be able to just have that conversation.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our program tonight. Tonight, we are focusing on something that's been talked about left, right, and center. They say the future is youthful, the leaders of tomorrow, and so on. But here's a fact that we all need to know. By 2030, even 2050, more than 70, close to even 80% of Africa's population is going to be youthful. Almost 1 billion young people seething with ideas, innovation, and hungry for opportunity. But here's the thing. How are we preparing these youth for the opportunities of tomorrow? Another question we have to ask you. In what ways are these young people changing the way we do things, changing the way we work, changing the way we make money? We've seen youth changing the way we protest.
Absolutely.
Using the Mandamano thing and the Gen Z protests. But in what other ways are the youth changing how we work? All that and so much more we're going to be talking about tonight on the People's Court. The future of the youth and the workplace, the future of work.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to the Daily Report, and later on we shall be bringing you the People's Court. I am George Maringa, joined by Victor Muyakane. On sign language interpretation is Irene Chebi-Watt. As we look at the future of work, you know very well, especially due to the pandemic, afterwards there's been the conversation of working from home. What exactly does that mean? The Gen Z have also said they are not your typical 8 to 5 people. How are they also redefining that? And we are also going to analyze and try to see what opportunities exist in the future in as much as they redefine the models of work. We invite your feedback on the socials, but before then, the highlights.
Tonight, the controversy surrounding the contempt of court charges against Acting Inspector General Gilbert Masengeli has intensified, with various groups now condemning the embattled police chief. Controller of Budget Dr. Margaret Nyakango has expressed fear for her safety following last year's arrest by DCI officers who transported her to Mombasa. Nyakango has also voiced concerns that her office continues to face frustration in fulfilling its mandate.
Chair, sometimes I feel unsafe, but to the extent that the same law has protected me.
And students from Multimedia University and Kabete National Polytechnic stage protests over numerous issues affecting them.
Today we extend peace with water. Today we extend peace with electricity.
We thank you for choosing TV47 to inform you. On the socials, you can find us at TV47 News. I am at George Maringa _ on X, formerly Twitter, and across the socials. You can also post to at Muyakane. Use the hashtag Daily Report, hashtag People's Court. Our SMS line and WhatsApp numbers are on your screens. Start with your name, where you're watching us from, followed by your question, comment, or feedback regarding the program tonight. Irene Chebi-Watt is on sign language interpretation, and just below that, you can find the QR code where you can follow the news content on our socials. The removal of Justice Lawrence Mugambi's security detail has caused different quarters to turn on the heat on Acting Inspector General of Police Gilbert Masengeli, who cited his authority to carry out the mandate, highlighting that the concerned personnel were recalled for training. And as Mike Kagwongo reports, the Kenyan Judges Welfare Association on Tuesday filed a lawsuit against a police officer, alleging that the officer carried out an order to remove Justice Mugambi's driver and security detail. Take a look.
The controversy surrounding the contempt of court charges against Acting Inspector General Gilbert Masengeli has taken a new twist, with multiple groups criticizing the embattled police chief following the withdrawal of Justice Lawrence Mugambi's security detail. On Tuesday, the Kenya Judges Welfare Association escalated the legal challenges facing Masengeli by filing a lawsuit against a police officer, accusing the officer of executing the order to remove Justice Mugambi's driver and security team.
We remind Inspector Riri that he The officers he has withdrawn and all his superiors, including the Inspector General, like all public and state officers, work for Kenyans and merely execute a delegated mandate from the people.
This as human rights groups Haki Africa asked Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki to intervene and ensure that court rulings were effected.
Haki Africa demands that the National Police Service immediately reinstates the security detail of Honorable Mugambi and seize any further actions that undermine judicial authority.
Tunamuuliza Profesa Kindiki kama mtu tuliompa kazi kuhakikisha kwamba anakamatwa na anapelekwa korokoroni, anapelekwa gerezani kuweza kutumikia kifungo chake cha miezi 6.
And the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority IPOA says it has initiated investigations into claims regarding the withdrawal of security officers assigned to the High Court judge. In a statement, IPOA CEO Elema Halaki cited the Monday statement by the Judicial Service Commission, which confirmed the removal of Mugambi's security detail, saying the action was both deliberate and punitive. But the acting IG has stood his ground, justifying the move to withdraw Justice Mugambi's security detail.
In case of Honorable Justice Mugambi, the two security officers in question are general duty officers, and they were therefore recalled to attend VIP protection security training, and also were replaced by 2 VIP protection officers from the Judicial Police Unit.
Hours after JSC condemned the withdrawal of Mugambi's security and demanded its immediate reinstatement, Masengeli now says the officers in question were only recalled for training purposes, with plans put in place for their replacement.
Contrary to the allegation by the Judicial Service Commission yesterday that the security details assigned to the Honorable Justice Mugambi has been thrown to intimidate the charge, we wish to clarify that allegation were ill-intended.
Masengeli clarifying that the officers were required for VIP security training in response to Chief Justice Martha Kome's remarks over their dismissal. On Monday, Chief Justice Martha Kome said the judge's security was withdrawn after he sentenced Masengeli to 6 months in jail for defying several court orders. He was ordered by the judge to appear and explain the whereabouts of the 2 brothers and an activist who were kidnapped on August 19 in Kitengela and Mlolongo respectively by individuals posing as police officers. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Mike, for that report. The National Police Service, NPS, has issued a firm statement reaffirming its constitutional independence following concerns raised by the Judicial Service Commission regarding the withdrawal of security detail for judges. In a strongly worded statement, the NPS has emphasized that as a national security organ, its operations fall solely under the independent command of the Inspector General and are free from external influence or interference as outlined in Article 245 4C of the Constitution. The statement also clarified that while the security had been withdrawn, it is not feasible to provide personal security to every citizen. The Inspector General is responsible for making decisions regarding security detail based on national security priorities. The NPS has reassured the public that the safety of all Kenyans, including judges, remains a top priority and that they will continue to protect citizens from harm without fear, favor, or intimidation. Tonight, the Controller of Budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakango, has said she still fears for her life after last year's arrest by DCI officers who took her to Mombasa. Appearing before MPs, Nyakango said she will remain vigilant as a gatekeeper of public funds. And as Apollo Kamau reports, Nyakango further expressed her frustrations over lack of funds to execute her mandate while blowing the whistle on the misuse of reallocation of funds by national government and the counties.
Committee.
There appears to be no respite for the Controller of Budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakango, in the wake of last year's arrest by DCI detectives and a grueling 7-hour journey to Mombasa. Nyakango, who appeared before the National Assembly's Constitution Implementation Oversight Committee, chaired by Githunguri MP Gathoni Mushomba, said she still fears for her life, but finds solace in the law.
Madam Chair, sometimes I feel unsafe, but to the extent that the same law has protected me, I feel safe. I've never found myself hiding or failing to say what I must say. That I always do.
Nyakango, who reads mischief in her arrest, says her office is now the target after she expressed frustration on lack of funds to execute her mandate. Nyakango is currently allocated 700 million shillings, an amount she describes as a drop in the ocean, given the scope of her mandate, comparing the figure to other equally important offices, like the Auditor General's office, which has a budget of 9 billion shillings.
Compare this, the Auditor General's office, which also works around the country, is funded to the extent of almost 9 billion. We are not even 1/10, and we are the flip side of the Auditor General because we are the gatekeepers.
Nyakango further told the CIOC committee that her office should be given more powers by amending the Control of Budget Act to have a say on reallocation of funds approved by her office. Without the amendments, she says, the current practice continues to breed corruption in the national and county governments. A case in point is a 1.5 billion shillings coffee cherry advance revolving fund meant to support small-scale coffee growers, with the funds now diverted to other sectors in the agriculture sector. A letter written by PS Ministry of Cooperatives on 22nd of August requests Treasury PS Chris Kipto to effect the reallocation.
I am quite rattled personally as a coffee farmer and as a member of parliament that represents farmers, coffee farmers in my constituency, that letters can be written by PSs authorizing and requesting for reallocation of budgets.
Reallocations have been an area of abuse. And I say this without fear of contradiction. So this letter I'm seeing here is one of those.
Counties and national governments have also been accused by the Control of the Budget for overestimating their revenues, causing a strain in their budgets and creating pending bills. Apol Kamau, TV47.
Thank you, Apollo. The memorial service for the 21 children who died in the Hillside and Russia Academy fire will be held next week at the Mwega grounds in Kieni constituency. Families of the affected children have been waiting on the detectives who had been finalizing their investigations to hand over the bodies of their loved ones. The government had assured parents that it will cater for all the funeral expenses. As the probe into the cause of the fire continues, repair works continue at the school with classes set to resume in 2 weeks' time.
We shall be having the memorial service for all the victims so that we can be able to release them to the families. The government is taking care of all the burial expenses for the victims and also for the, we have also very, very many who are within that dormitory, around 156. We lost 21. So those who died, those who are left, they lost all their personal effects. And also we have taken into consideration that today we were budgeting for all the expenses which shall be incurred, and the government will take care of all the expenses we have also formed a subcommittee to see how the school will be opened as soon as possible, so that the students are now going to be able to come back to school and resume their normal activities.
Almost 2 weeks after the suspension of services in all public hospitals in Taita Taveta County, the county health workers' strike has taken another turn, with the protesters now taking to the streets in Voi Town to press Governor Andrew Mwadime's administration to immediately deal with the issues they have raised. Julius Meriki with the details.
Health services in Taita Taveta County have now been paralyzed for 13 consecutive days as health workers continue their strike, led by union officials advocating for their members' rights. This comes after the county government's effort to convince the workers to return to duty were unsuccessful. The health workers accused the county government of lacking commitment, citing its failure to implement several memorandum agreements made since 2022.
Mgomo huu umesababishwa na serikali ambayo inachukua pesa zetu, alafu wanazitumia pesa zetu, hazipelekwi pale zinatakana kupelekwa.
Sisi kama wahudumu wa afya tumetoka nje na lengo moja, na lengo letu ni kuhakikisha kwamba yale matako yetu yanasikizwa.
Tumekuwa hatuwezi kupata loan zetu mpaka saa hii. Sako yetu imefikia kiwango ya kuwa haiwezi pay members loans kwa sababu pesa zetu hasifiki kwa muda.
Inabidi tuzungumze ile lugha ambayo pengine watatuelewa zaidi, na hiyo ikawa ni tuna down tools, tunatoka ili kufuata haki yetu.
They also criticized the county government for neglecting critical issues such as healthcare services and proper working equipments.
We don't have even the drugs in the facility. Yes, we'll go back to work, but again, there are no even lab reagents. What are we going to do there? The challenge comes whereby we're having our own patient. A patient anaweza kukufia hata hapo kwa mkono, and yet you have the skills to help the patient but don't have the tools to help that patient.
Tunaomba pia hata IABC waingilie katika hii maneno. Manake hizi ni pesa ambazo zilishatolewa muda mrefu na hizi pesa zimeliwa.
Na tokea tuanze huu mgomo tumekuwa na maongezi na vikao kadha wa kadha, lakini bado hatujafikia suluhu.
As it stands, residents of Taita Taveta County will remain without access to healthcare until the government addresses the workers' demands. Julius Mariki, TV47, Taita Taveta.
Thank you for that report. The Azimio party has forwarded Koki Mule's name as Azimio nominee for the minority party to the IABC selection panel as presented by the political Party's Liaison Committee, PPLC, speaking at the National Conference on the roadmap to the finalization of the electoral reforms ahead of the 2027 general election. Opposition leader Kalonzo Musyoka faulted the political party's dispute tribunal for failing to adhere to the two-thirds gender rule that is a constitutional and legal requirement for selecting the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IABC selection panel. The Wiper Party leader has called on the President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga to fast-track the reconstitution of the electoral body.
The respondent's position that the two-thirds gender principle is a constitutional and legal requirement for selecting nominees for the IABC selection panel. Despite the interest of the minority party coalition, the tribunal backed a questionable political party's liaison committee election that resulted in a list of nominees that was entirely male. As a result, the Parliamentary Service Commission should proceed to forward the name of Ambassador Dr. Koki Muli as Azimio's nominee for the minority party to the IABC selection panel as presented by PPLC. When I spoke to Honorable Raila Odinga, they told me they are in very serious consultation and agreement with the other appointing authority, President William Ruto, because they now want to finalize this thing. It is the two of them. Our feeling was immediately we presented this report, we expected special sittings of both houses to fast track these conclusions of NADCO.
Multimedia University students earlier today held a strike to demonstrate due to various issues plaguing the school, including water shortage, lack of Wi-Fi, poor drainage, and substandard hostels. This as Kabete National Polytechnic also took to the streets to protest. Samira Mohammed with a roundup.
These were the scenes at the Multimedia University earlier today, as students took to the street to protest due to what they said were various issues plaguing the school, including water shortage, lack of Wi-Fi, poor drainage, and substandard hostels.
Today we extend peace with water. Today we extend peace with electricity. Today we extend peace with Wi-Fi. We are giving them only today. We want water by today evening.
The reason why we are demonstrating, number one, it was about water shortage. Yes. In our school, there is no way we can go for 2 weeks without water.
And hours later, the peaceful protest turned into a battlefield as police officers engaged the students in a running battles. The officers lobbed tear gas to disperse the crowd as the students ran for their dear lives.
We are disappointed. We are agitated. There is no way policemen can come into our school and hurt our own comrades. We were here today demonstrating peacefully till our peace was tampered with by the police officers.
Elsewhere, students from the Kabete National Polytechnic earlier today blocked a section of Wayaki Way to demonstrate against the school administration and school fees increments. The students now want the immediate transfer of the school principal and his deputy.
As we don't have an issue yenye iko principal na deputy wake waende. Another issue, ministry ikuje.
They are now calling upon the Ministry of Education to immediately intervene and ensure that the two have stepped down. These, as the Chief Principal Patrick Mushemi say, the institution has now been closed indefinitely after students went on a rampage.
The two, principal and the deputy, must go. The ministry must be here to listen to us.
Samira Mohammed for TV47.
Thank you, Samira. Nyamira Governor Amos Nyaribo has, for the second time, narrowly survived an impeachment motion. In today's vote at the Nyamira County Assembly, Nyaribo escaped removal by just one vote as the number of MCAs supporting his ouster increased from 16 to 22. However, the motion fell short of the legally required 23 votes to pass. The embattled governor has been facing 4 charges in the latest impeachment attempt. This story has been produced by our reporter, Kombo Alfai.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I vote no against the impeachment.
It is a second sigh of relief for Governor Nyaribo after an impeachment motion against him failed to realize the legally required votes for throwing him out of office.
I, 22 in number, and those who voted no, that is against the impeachment motion, are 12. The number of those who abstained is 0, and the total number of valid votes cast are 34 votes. And the total threshold needed to impeach the governor stands at 22.6, which is 23. So the governor survives.
Governor Nyaribo's lawyer turned up with every legal arsenal to defend him and beat the impeachment motion, but things were rather different this time as their client escaped only by 1 vote. Unlike the last impeachment motion outcome of 16 votes out of the required 23, the figure increased to 22 votes this time round.
Na ninasihi viongozi wote wa Nyamira tuwe na amani sasa, tufanye kazi, tufanyiwe kazi, tupatie gavana mwelekeo na yale ambayo tunataka kuyazungumza. Sasa kuna fursa ya kukaa na gavana ndio tupate kujadiliana tuweze kuinua kaunti yetu ya Nyamira.
This as his lawyer Jacob Ngwele has voiced concerns over the growing trend of impeachment motions targeting governors without what he said was sufficient or credible evidence.
To exercise their rightful role under the Constitution. And that is limited to oversight, legislation and representation, and not witch hunt.
In the wake of the failed impeachment attempt, a section of Nyamira residents who had been waiting to hear Governor Nyaribo's fate shared different opinions on the matter.
Tunataka huduma bora. Wacha kwa rudi maofisini pate kufanyia wananchi kazi.
Kwa kusema ukweli hatujaritika. Ukiangalia Nyamira kaunti sasa ni kama sasa inaenda kupotea kabisa. Mimi ndaweza sema MCA wenye walikuwa wanataka kufanya impeachment wasikufe moyo.
Despite the failures of both the first and the second attempt to remove Nyaribo from office, the MCAs leading the charge remain optimistic. They are determined to pursue a vote of no confidence until they succeed, encouraged by the increasing number of votes in favor of impeachment. Anastasia Mkabi, TV47.
Now, women-owned businesses that are not women-led appear to be gaining traction, disadvantaging a large number of informal businesses genuinely run by women. Academia-led women's programs acknowledge this gap, noting that while many businesses are women-owned only on paper, they still encounter similar challenges in financing and networking. However, these businesses are reducing opportunities for the marginalized groups they claim to represent. As a solution, there is now a push for incubator programs targeting select businesses to help bridge the gap. Take a look.
So then the entrepreneurs will...
Women own over 60% of informal businesses, and that number reduces drastically as those businesses continue to grow. This now locks out the marginalized groups from accessing financing, especially from formal institutions.
One of the things that we have found is that a lot of enterprises, and especially again when we looked at the study we did on AGPO, there were a lot of enterprises that were registered as women-owned enterprises, but the women were, the extent of their ownership was on the registration certificate, but they never did anything. They did not run the businesses, they did not make decisions in those enterprises. That is very true. But for every enterprise we found that to be true, we also found others where the women are actually leading and owning. Yeah? So it is not homogeneous. Like I've said, it is not homogeneous.
Programs usually established to provide grants for such businesses are also being hogged by what seems like businesses led by women on paper, but that are realistically run by the opposite gender. Members of academia are now veering towards entrepreneur incubator programs that build up fempreneurs from the ground up, providing for a more organic growth trajectory.
Businesses, is it only women or men also want to have micro businesses? So it is not necessarily most women enterprises. Yeah, there are women enterprises that want to grow, but you do find more women than men saying I would prefer to remain small. Yeah, and it's a cyclical conversation. So does a woman want to remain small because she has too many other things to do, and therefore she'll not be able to run a large enterprise? That could be one aspect to it.
This comes in the wake of elevated efforts to promote businesses led and owned by marginalized groups who may not be collateral attractive to banks.
So we're expecting that these entrepreneurs or these enterprises will be able to identify, will be able to actually measure that there's increased trade, there's increased investment.
They said this ahead of the 12th annual SME Conference and Expo slated to run later this month. Hibak Said for TV47.
Kenya will be among countries seeking to benefit from new technologies in agriculture in Russia in an agribusiness exhibition event that will bring global economies together next month. The Asia Expo 2024 is a platform built as an integrator of international cooperation in the agricultural sector in the context of global reorientation of markets, and will host countries dependent on agriculture to spur their economic growth. Chief Executive Officer of Asia Expo, Igor Milovanov said the exhibition is promising cooperation between Russia and African countries in several areas of agriculture.
Africa has a huge potential for the economic growth. Human, energy, agriculture, and other resources. In my opinion, first step for develop African agriculture